أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل الفار. As always, it's an honor and blessing to be able to speak in front of the mu'mineen. Um, I think this may be my second time that I'm speaking in this gathering. I think the previous time, I'm not exactly sure when. I feel like it's been more than a year ago. But nevertheless, it's good to see that this endeavor is continuing and that you guys are still able to connect with each other and continue even from a distance, even if it's online, a sort of sense of community, a sense of coming together and striving towards true Islamic teachings and improving your lives in accordance to the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has directed us towards. This circumstances and the situation that we're in is a special occasion. And that's something that maybe we've talked about before, maybe you've heard before from other people, or maybe even from myself. And that is that it's every time, every place that you find yourself in is a special occasion. But there are certain places and certain occasions and certain times that are more special and more unique than others, that are granted a special place by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's something that we find ourselves in right now. These 10 days, these first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are a special time, even beyond like the sort of historical context of, of Hajj and Hazrat Ibrahim. There's also the context of Hazrat Musa and the 30 days that were promised to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that meeting that he had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are extended for 10 extra days, which these are those 10 extra days. And that's that prayer that we're recommended to do between Maghrib and Isha in these 10 days, where we recite that verse of the Quran, where we remember this sort of promise that was extended for those 10 extra days. Now, something that is simultaneously a great blessing, as well as perhaps something that we might become a danger for us, is the fact that our calendar year is filled with occasions that happen repetitively. The previous sort of year, we were in the same sort of position where these were the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. We had, Muharram come, we had Shahr Ramadan come, we had one occasion after another come about. And that might lead to this sense that it doesn't really matter if I do something this year or not. Well, next year will come and I can do it next year. And this sort of idea that, basically it doesn't really matter. It's not really that important. If I pray today, it doesn't really matter. I can just pray tomorrow. These kinds of ideas might come into our head. And this is where we have to fight very strongly against it and realize that every single opportunity is unique. The Arafah of this year, these 10 days of this year that are in the beginning of this Dhul Hijjah, is unique. The opportunity that I'm afforded right now, where I am at this time by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will never happen again. The opportunity that comes the next year, which is, the next, inshallah, if we meet the next Dhul Hijjah, then that's something that will be a different opportunity. And yes, inshallah, I pray that I take advantage of that opportunity as well. But I have to take advantage of the opportunity in front of me right now. And that's something that's crucially important. That I don't hesitate, that I don't take the opportunity in front of me for granted. There's a short saying by Amir Mu'min where he says that al-furas tumurru marra sahab, that the opportunities fly by like how the clouds fly by in the sky. And that's really how the case is. Like if we don't wake up and take advantage of what's right in front of us, then it might become too late for us, and that opportunity will go by, and we're just left with regret that we didn't take advantage of that while it was there in front of us. And that applies to many, many things in our lives. But seeing as the topic of what we're talking about is these occasions, and especially the occasion of Arafah, then that's something especially to be aware of right now. Now, in terms of the significance of this occasion, we do want to sort of mention a little bit of Dua Arafah itself. But again, in reality, Dua Arafah is something that is very lengthy in content in terms of its length, as well as very deep in terms of its, in its content. So there's no way we could even go over any sort of commentary of Dua Arafah or anything that would allow us to really have a comprehensive understanding of it in this short duration that we have in front of us. So we're not going to even attempt that. Might mention a few lines here and there as something to maybe think about. But I think something more important is to sort of highlight the importance of taking advantage of that opportunity. Um, and this is something that we can look at in the reflection of whose footsteps we're following in. One of the footsteps we're following in, obviously, in this time, as mentioned before, is Hazrat Ibrahim, right? When this is the time and occasion where the various amal of Hajj are done, Umrah Tamattu, Hajj Tamattu, they're done, which are following the footsteps of Hazrat Ibrahim and his family in various sort of aspects of their life. Whether that's, the footsteps of for water, or it's the Kaaba, as Hazrat Ibrahim and Ismail did when they made the Kaaba, or rebuilt the Kaaba, according to maybe another way of looking at it. And the various other things that we do in terms of Ramya Jamarat, when you're going and sort of stoning those the shaitans, and you're sort of doing the same thing that Hazrat Ibrahim did as he went forward to do the dhibh and slaughtering of his son. All of these things were following the footsteps of the Prophet. And something might come to our mind that, okay, what's the significance of that? Like, why does it matter? Why is this such a central thing that I'm following exactly what the Prophet did? Like, why does Hajj become such a central thing for that reason? And we might not have an exact reason. There are things that are given in the hadith, and there are various wisdoms and hikmah that we can go over. I just want to highlight just one thing, and this aspect of it is that everything that Hazrat Ibrahim did, he did with the singular objective of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the challenges that he faced crossed almost the whole full spectrum of challenges that anyone could face in their lives. You look at his challenges, you know with his wife, and then not having children, and then after a long time having a child, then being told to, once you after a long time having the child, having to sort of leave that child and as the Hajra alone in the desert without anyone to take care of them, without anything. And not only is he trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he did the tarbiyat and training of his family such that they're also trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not despairing. Hazrat Hajra isn't from saying that, oh, like, what have you done? I'm going to complain against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that what kind of prophet of this is yours that he left me, in the middle of the desert, right? No, she's has complete trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that there is a wisdom, there is a reason behind this, even though it's obviously difficult, an extreme difficulty. But I'll move forward. I mean, just imagine that kind of context. Imagine what's happening right then. That at that moment, Hazrat Hajra is being left in the middle of the desert with a young child, with no real resources around her to take care of that child or herself. And she just has to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's extreme difficult test to be facing. And that's something that we have to really be cognizant of, that that's the footsteps that we're following, the footsteps of a lady that not just went through that test, but passed it with flying colors, that didn't even hesitate, that went and accepted that this was the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so I'm going to go forward with it. I'm going to do whatever I can within the sort of the place and circumstances that have been placed in. That sort of thing that Hazrat Ibrahim faced, whether it's the slaughtering of Hazrat Ismail, whether it's the having to build this Kaaba and all these things, and those challenges that you faced in those circumstances, one thing after another, all of these challenges are things that we can see reflected within our lives. And so it's not just following the footsteps of a almost ritualistic action of what Hazrat Ibrahim did, but rather it's following the footsteps in the sense of what kind of mindset and what kind of perseverance he had on the path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That whatever he did was singularly for that purpose. That what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, I'll do it. Whatever he wants, I'll do it. And this is something that we want to inculcate within ourselves. That within this time, that's something that we see. Now, as mentioned, that this is also the same time as this is happening, in Hazrat Musa's time, there's another event happening, where that this is the time span where he told his people, his qawm, that, look, I'm going to be going for 30 days, 1 month, and then I'll come back. And instead of just 30 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extended it by 10 extra days. So it became 40 days. When Hazrat Musa came back, he saw that his qawm, his people, had turned away from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turned towards worshipping this, golden calf that they made. Right? And this just again put yourself in the shoes of this situation of what's happening. Try to sort of depict this within your mind as strongly as possible. That this is a people that have seen miracle after miracle, right? They've been delivered from the persecution and oppression of Fir'aun. They've crossed, the sea where the sea was split in half, and they saw miracle after miracle from, Hazrat Musa coming, one after another. They had manna and salwa coming, like food coming from the heavens. They had, a variety of foods coming from them. Miracle after miracle they saw, right? And still, this happened, right? Still, this thing happened where they turned away from the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turned towards idol worshipping. They did shirk, right? And at one time, it's almost like we think about this event and we say that that's a historical event that they're obviously foolish. It was those people, those Bani Israel, they did it, and that's something that's far off. Like that would never that's really not really relevant to me because I would never do something like that. I would never turn away from Allah, especially if I've seen miracle after miracle. Why would I turn away? But if we think about it, right, we're also in a situation, a circumstance where we've been promised something. We've been promised a sort of return of our prophet, of our Imam, where we've been told that there's a Mahdi al-Maw'ud, that he's been promised. And like we're awaiting his return, and that return seemingly has been extended, right? It's been pushed further than what anyone would have thought would have been. Like we have times where like from like Sheikh Saduq, one of our earliest great fuqaha and scholars, that is saying that look, you know the signs of dhuhur, of the return of the Imam, are near, and 1,000 years have passed since that time, and so it's still like no knowledge of when this dhuhur will happen. But if we look at ourselves and we say that what are we doing? If the absence of the Imam has been extended, then that's telling me that there's something that I'm doing or we are not doing as a community, as a ummah, that's hampering the return of the Imam, that's making it so that the Imam can't return. It's something that's stopping him. So what is it that I'm doing? What is it that we're not doing that's stopping the return? It should be, instead of saying that okay, it's not that important, I can just live my regular day-to-day life, it should be pushing me and saying that look, there's something missing, there's something crucially missing within my life, within the life of the ummah, that's pushing this return further and further away. We're lacking something. There's something not happening. There's something that's missing, right? And we should be striving in our utmost to figure that out and work towards it, work towards fixing that. And so that's the other context of the situation that we're in, these 10 days that we're in. All of this that I'm trying to put in sort of thing is to sort of place the temporal situation, the timeline of where we're in, into further significance. So we realize the height and the magnitude of the significance of these days, that they're not just any days. History doesn't just repeat itself randomly. It's something that is intended. Dates happen for a purpose. Occasions and things that happen in the calendar year happen in this order for a reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just roll dice and magically or randomly place events in the calendar year. No, every event happened in a timeline when it was supposed to happen, at a timeline where it has significance. And so that significance is magnified when we're told to commemorate those events as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing them out and saying that look, this is even further important. Which is why perhaps when we look in our hadith, we say that if someone wasn't able to sort of reach the peak of Laylatul Qadr and sort of take advantage of that time in Shahr Ramadan, well then these 10 days, the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, concentrate there. They can make up for it then, right? So it shows that these are great days, these are great nights, these are things to take advantage of, full advantage of. And this is where we'll just slightly turn towards the dua. One of the things that further shows significance are the du'as and a'mal that we've been told to do in various times. And so one of the a'mal that we're told to do on the day of Arafah is this dua of Arafah. To the extent, the importance of this dua is to this extent that while it's been recommended to do this dua and to fast during the day of Arafah, that recommendation is conditioned to that if it doesn't make you weak and unable to recite the dua. So the dua is more important than even fasting on the day. right? And it shows like how great of an importance that this dua has. Now, before we even talk about specifics of Dua Arafah, I think it's important to take a step back and think about the concept of dua in itself. Right? We do constantly talk about dua here and there. We have in the Quran, it says, "Ad'uni astajib lakum." If you call upon me, I'll answer. Or إذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. That if my servant asks you regarding me, then tell them that I'm close. I answer the call of the caller when he calls upon me. Right? This is something that we have in the Quran. We have these verses that are always repeated. We have the various dua that we do, dua tawassul, dua command, this dua, that dua, all of these adiyah that we repeat constantly. But what is dua? Right? Have we stopped and considered what is it that we're exactly doing? Is it that I'm supposed to be just reading some words in a language that I don't understand? Is that what dua is? Is it something that I'm going to be sort of doing, like in terms of like that's my crucial thing that I need to do is just repeat some words that someone said 1,400 odd years ago? That's what the crucial thing is to do. Well, obviously not. Like the words on their own is not important, right? It's the meaning of the words. It's the intent, and this is very, very important. That dua, true dua, means that I'm calling out to my Lord, right? So the first of all, it means that I'm cognizant, I'm aware of who I'm in front of, at least at some level. We're not saying that I have to have the same, irfan and knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the Prophet and Imams did. No, obviously not. But I'm at least at the base level aware that I'm sitting in front of my Lord, of the master of everything, the one who created everything, the one who has everything in his hands. That's who I'm sitting in front of. That's the bare minimum. So first is that recognition that aqaid has to be strong there. The second is that I'm expressing something from within. There's something that I'm feeling, something that I understood, a lack in myself that I felt, something that I'm desiring, and I'm expressing all of that. I'm talking to the one who has everything, all of my affairs in his hands, and nobody else can do anything without his will. Everything is in his hands, right? Whatever I want, it's his. He's the one who determines it. If I want anything, he's the one who will guarantee it. And so that means that when I'm talking to him, I'm pleading, I'm seeking, going to him as the beggar who has nothing, absolutely nothing in his hands. And I don't have any right, I don't have anything, any claim over anything. I can't demand anything. I don't have a right over anything. It doesn't matter how many Salatul Layl I've done. It doesn't matter. I still don't owe anything. It's like he's the one who gave everything to me. He's the one who gave me the ability to do Salatul Layl in the first place. Nothing I have is inherent to me. And so when I come in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am the destitute beggar with nothing in my hands. And with that perspective, when I'm going in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the words that I'm expressing and saying are an expression of what I have inside of me. It's not as if I'm reading the words and then I'm trying to think about them and trying to put that emotion inside of my heart. No, the emotion comes first, the feeling comes first, the understanding comes first, and I'm expressing that in words. That's dua. The other way around is good. I can learn from a dua. Let's say I want to have a class on dua kumel, a class on dua arafah, a class on dua Abu Hamza Thamani, a class on dua iftitah, whatever dua we have. I want to have a class on it. And these dua, by the way, they are encyclopedias of knowledge, and we should have a class on them. We should study them line for line, right? But while we're doing that, we're not doing dua. We're learning from dua. It's a class where the dua is our teacher and we're the student, and we're learning things from it. We're understanding things from it. We're tailoring our mindset from it. That's something that we need to do. But we do that in preparation to say the dua first. So we're preparing ourselves for understanding how we're supposed to even think about things. And then once we've understood, once we've inculcated something of that, then I can say things naturally. Then the emotion comes and I see myself as the beggar in front of Allah, and then those words gush out from within me. Then those words come out. And this is where, if you think about it in that light, that's where the beauty of this Dua Arafah comes. When you think about this situation where someone comes up to Imam Husayn on the day of Arafah and says that, look, I want to talk to Allah, I want to have a dua, teach me how to speak to Allah. And then he goes, right? No preparation, nothing needed, no need to stop and think. It's ready. That's where you see the difference. The Imam is there. His heart is immediately ready. Doesn't need to think about the words because everything, the content of it, is already within the heart. And all that just remains is to express it. What's in the heart is pure. There's no deficiency there. There's no unclarity there. There's nothing that, oh, I haven't really thought of myself in front of Allah, so I don't know how to speak to him. I've been like, when I start try to think about it, my mind blinks. Right? It's not like that. It's not like us. Like when we go in front of salat and we do things, it's just lip service. We just say things. When we do a tasbih after salat, it's as if like we've just done it so practiced. It's just like how fast we can go through 34 tasbih, 34 Allahu Akbars and Alhamdulillahs and Subhanallahs as quickly as possible, and we finish in 1 minute, and it's as if like you ask someone like what were you saying, and then probably don't even know, right? And that's it's not like that. The Imam is everything is ready within his heart, ready to the extent that it's like overflowing. The instant it's prompted, the Dua Arafah comes, right? That's how the Imam is. Right? And so we're learning from that. So what we want to do is something similar. Again, at our level, we're not claiming that we can become anything like the Imam, but the Imam is the Imam, meaning that I have to follow in his footsteps. I want to prepare my heart in a similar way. So what I need to do in order for that to happen, in order for me to prepare my heart properly, is and this opportunity before I reach the day of Arafah, I am conscious of my a'mal in my day, in my night. I do hisab, I do an accounting of myself constantly. I'm aware of my deficiencies and I do tawbah for them. I'm aware of the good things that I've done and I ask Allah SWT to increase me in the tawfiqat that I have. I'm constantly pushing myself to be better day by day, moment by moment. Right, there's a hadith by, um, I believe it's by Imam Hadi, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not exactly sure which Imam said it. It says that Man istawa yawmahu fahuwa maghbun. Right, the one whose 2 days are equal to each other, then this person has been deceived. Right, and it goes on to say that the one whose last portion of his second day is the best, then this person, you should sort of be envious of this kind of person. But the person whose last portion of the second day is the worst portion of those 2 days, then this person is mal'oon, he's cursed, right? This be going on a downward trend, right? We should be pushing ourselves constantly. Every moment should be better. Every rak'ah of our prayer should be better than the previous rak'ah. We shouldn't ever be stagnant, satisfied with where we are. No, we appreciate the good things we have, but we push ourselves forward. We're also not sort of fallen to despair in like a pit of where we can't even do anything positive. Where we're just saying that no, it doesn't matter what I do, nothing is useful, everything is useless, I'm doomed, nothing I do is worth it. No, not like that either. We're conscious of the good things. I'm very aware of the tawfiqat that Allah SWT has granted me with, blessed me with, and so I'm thankful and grateful in front of Allah SWT. And so I'm always conscious of all the great blessings that I've been granted with within my actions, what I can do. And so then I'm sort of going and pushing myself forward in that light. Now, I know I've spoken a lot, and I think time is running out, and wanted to leave some time for the question and answer. I see there's some questions have been posted on the chat and things, and I haven't been looking at that. But I wanted to, before sort of end, I just wanted to mention maybe one or two lines within the actual Dua of Arafah. It's something, again, like the Dua is something to take a lot of time to basically delve into, almost drown yourself within. It's not something that is can be read in one go. It's not something that is small. It's not something that is like whether it's there or not. It's or like I can just do one small breeze through and it'll be fine. No, it takes time. It's something that we have to read again and again and again. It's not something that is enough to do once or twice. We have to do it constantly. It's something that we have to do. Like we had to read it not once, not twice, but like several times. Right? And this is something that we have to develop, that habit of a thing where we're when we look at these du'as, we don't just look at it now when we're in like almost in a crunch time where we just have a few days left. No, we use the whole of the year to look at it. It's something that we put in as a habit that as on a regular basis, I'm going to read this dua to prepare myself for the days of the day of Arafah. I'm preparing for the day of Arafah throughout the year, so I can say this dua with this pure heart, with a heart that's ready to say these words. In any case, just wanted to mention a few lines. Yeah. So I'm just and there's a line here that says that there's a lot of lines within this dua that are very, from a uh, I guess I want to say this properly. From an outside perspective, if we're outside of Islam and we're not looking within Islam, people might say that you're being very negative. You're being like, why are you sort of like talking about yourself so negatively? But this is something that we see as a hallmark of our du'as, that we are conscious in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're extremely self-critical. So there's a line that says this. It says, ثم أنا يا إلهي المعترف بذنوبي فاغفرها لي. It says that, then, oh my Allah, oh my God, I am the one who is, admitting my sins. So forgive them of me. أنا الذي أسأت، أنا الذي أخطأت، أنا الذي هممت، أنا الذي جهلت، أنا الذي غفلت. Right? Saying that I'm the one who's done this bad deed. I'm the one who's made this mistake. I'm the one who, went and sort of put my efforts into sinning. I'm the one who's done this ignorant act. I'm the one who is heedless. Right? We see that in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no sort of, there's no takalluf, there's no ta'aruf, there's nothing like that I can hide behind some sort of veil. I'm being completely, absolutely honest in front of Allah. I'm admitting it. And it's important that we admit things with our tongue. That even if we might have it in our heart, we have to, when we come in front of Allah, there's no time for being shy. Right? He knows it. And so we're admitting everything. And it's only when we admit those things, when we're admitting our faults, when we're admitting our shortcomings, that we can move forward, because then we see the desperation. Once that admittance is there, then the desperation comes that I'm at this, destitute state, made from the workings of my own hands. Then I need your help. I'm crying out from that space of desperation. And this is where we see that we turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we ask for Him for things. Now, again, if you put this, if just one moment to take outside this dua, the context of dua, again, this dua is in the context of Arafah, on the day of Arafah, on this place of Arafah, when is this place, the peak, almost like the spiritual peak of Hajj, of what's happening in Hajj, where you're communing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just as an individual, but as a community, as an ummah, this whole ummah that's gathered together. You've erased all these differences and you're coming together towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And this is the thing that you're going towards with Him, with this kind of perspective, without any sort of veils, without any sort of false coverings. So then there's another place within this dua where it says that أنك الحكم حكم العدل الذي لا تجور وعدلك محلك ومن كل عدلك مهربي. It says that you're the one who is the decider, the ruler, the judger, and you judge with your justice, which does not do any sort of oppression. Your justice, which there's no, oppression within it. But it's that justice that's going to destroy me. Right? And that justice that I have, I'm seeking, your protection from. Right? Why? Because we're saying that I'm running away from that justice towards your mercy. Again, it's a beautiful way of putting it in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We're not actually saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has two different parts where His justice is going to do this to me and His mercy is going to do something else to me. Rather, we're saying this, if I'm being fair with myself, I deserve punishment. I've done wrong. I've sinned. I'm not good. But I'm seeking your mercy. And this act of seeking your mercy qualifies me under even the bandwidth of your justice for me to qualify for your mercy in the system that you've built. It's maybe a bit complicated to understand, but it's something that we're saying that, look, the only one that can save me from your decree is you. And the only way that I can qualify for that saving and that mercy is me pleading in front of you and me making the effort to change. Not just pleading in this meaningless tongue service, but actually striving for change. And that's what we're doing again within this dua. Time and time again, within this dua, you'll see admittance of fault, a pleading for safety, for something, and this idea that I want to become this best of servants for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's with the remembrance and the dhikr of Allah, right? That we want to sort of live in our hearts, right? بِذِكْرِكَ عَاشَ قَلْبِي. Like, and my heart becomes, enlivened with your remembrance. So we talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these terms within this dua. So I think I've taken enough time, although there's, if we wanted to, like, again, to be honest, we could sort of spend hours and hours going through every single line of this dua and we wouldn't finish. There's so much to talk about. And again, as a general piece of advice, yes, it helps if you've gone through Hawza studies and you know the background and you can able to connect things and connect the dots easier. But that doesn't mean that your hand is cut short. Right? Imam Husayn said this dua to a normal person. Right? He didn't give it with a commentary or anything like that. It means that at some level this dua is understandable. Like you can take it. None. I won't say like if I'm reading it, not obviously I'm not understanding the depths of what Imam Husayn understood. There's far off from it. But the surface level, just the basic understanding it. If I'm just reading it and reading the translation, I'll understand something. I'll at least understand how I'm supposed to be talking to my Lord, how I'm supposed to be talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how I'm supposed to be realizing things about myself, what kind of perspective I should have, how do I go and admit my sins in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the adab and etiquettes of talking with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are things I could understand from it. These are things I could understand easily from the translation. And it's something that we can definitely gain from. And so it's not the case that I need someone to take my hand and give me through a lesson on every single line. If we had that opportunity, then that would be great. That would be the cherry on the top. But that's not necessary. We don't need to have that as a barrier that stops us from accessing this dua. No, we should use the opportunity and the time that we have in front of us. Don't hesitate. Open the dua, open a translation of it, start reading it, start thinking about it, reflect on it, write down your reflections. Write down your reflections next to those lines so that when it comes to the day of Arafah and you're going to say that, those lines, you'll see even those small notes that you've made and it'll bring into your mind all those thoughts again, that reflection that you had, and your heart will be able to say those words with a full heart, inshallah. So I'll end there, and inshallah, I think if there's time and things, we can address some of the questions that have come up, inshallah.
Jazakallah Sayyid, that was very, very insightful. I'm sure everyone here has learned something from it. I'm just gonna read a few questions. Someone said, I tried reading some of the dua recently, and it alludes to our dependence of Allah and also about a lot of our weaknesses. Is this a source of shame or to bring us closer to Allah?
Sorry, can you say that again? Like, I didn't understand. What was it?
So I tried reading some of the dua, and it alludes to our
Oh,
dependence of Allah and also about a lot of our weaknesses. Is this a source of shame or to bring us closer to Allah?
so this isn't something that is mutually exclusive. In fact, if you think about it, our dependence on Allah is something that's inherent to us. Right? There's nothing that we'll do, nothing that we can do that will change that. We are inherently dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what our being is. There is no state, that no place that will reach that will remove that. The person who realized his dependence on Allah the most, and so you can say almost the neediest one on the earth to Allah is Rasulullah. And that's why he has the highest rank, right? Because he realized that neediness the most. And so this awareness of our weakness, this awareness of how needy we are, is what allows us to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you think about it in terms of very material things, if the more I'm aware of my bodily needs, the more I can satisfy those needs. If I know that I'm hungry and that food, this nutrient filled food, is what my body needs, then I'll go towards it and I'll seek it. But for example, a baby who doesn't know that, who just has some sensation that is hurting them, will they'll cry when they are feeling hungry, but they won't know what will actually satisfy, that sensation, and they won't be able to communicate it because they don't know it. They won't be able to go towards it because they don't know it. They won't be able to distinguish it, right? And so that's where the more we realize that we're truly dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're inherently weak, we're inherently less, we're inherently, unstable within ourselves. And the only thing that gives us stability, the only thing that gives us, anything really, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the more we'll seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we'll go after Him, the more we'll do everything we can to get closer to Him. And so it is something that's expressing an inherent facet, or you can almost say the ultimate facet of who we are. And therefore it enables us to get closer. Yes, at the same time, there is sometimes an element of shame within it, because sometimes the weaknesses that's being talked about is not the inherent type, rather it's the type that is of, my own doing, where I've shamed myself by sinning. I've shamed myself in front of Allah by doing the wrong thing. And so if that's what I've done, then that's something that is a source of shame, and I'm admitting my shame in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's the one who, above all else, I should be able to admit in front of, because He's already aware, and He's already constantly aware of what I do and why I do it. And so there is nothing separating Him. There, He's, something that's there. And so there is an aspect of that as well. But the inherent thing is, I think, the base thing that's, more important.
All right, Jazakallah for the beautiful answer. There's another one. Salam, as someone who's been struggling with a routine, I want to ask what amal, apart from our daily prayers, should we do to take advantage of these days? And what should be our routine centered around the prayers that would help us take advantage of these days? So basically, like any other extra amal that we can do during these days to get connected to Allah, apart from the daily prayers.
And so again, like, the routine that we do in terms of, a schedule and improving ourselves, that's something that's, we have to sort of build on throughout the year. It's not like, um, I think, I give this example a lot, but I think it's something that's easily understood, that if I'm going to sort of, let's say I'm training for some sort of sport or some sort of physical activity or some weightlifting, it's not like, I see the largest weight in the gym and I immediately start to sort of pick that up. I have to work myself up towards it. And if I want to sort of have that as a stable sort of level of strength where I can regularly pick that up, then I have to train my body slowly but surely to be able to pick that up and to be able to sort of handle that weight. This is the same thing with these du'as, the same thing with the amal that we have. We need to train ourselves slowly but surely to be able to handle, the weight of these du'as. It's not something that can be handled, in one go. And so if I'm going to be doing it properly, then I need to sort of do this throughout the year. And so I have to have that long-term plan, not just, short-term goal of like wanting to do Dua Arafah, but rather long-term plan of what am I doing. And so with that in mind, the thing that is most centrally important in terms of a routine is a routine of accounting of oneself, where I'm cognizant of what are the wajibat that I have, what are the muharramat, both as an individual and as a society, as a piece of society, towards society, and then be constantly aware of that. I don't go to sleep without reviewing my day and seeing if I did anything good. I ask Allah to increase it. If I did something wrong, then I do tawbah in front of Allah and I sincerely ask, plead to never, do that again, never repeat that sin again. And I'm constantly doing that. That's the routine that I need to develop. Now, yes, there are routines that come within Amal as well, which is, the first is within the wajibat itself, which is, those 5 daily prayers that we do. That's within the daily routine that we have. Other things that, start from that as well. We can have, for example, there's daily du'as to recite, or daily ziyarat to recite, or, having a regular amount of recitation of the Quran, whether it's a few ayahs or one page or 50 ayahs, depending on, where you are in, that progress. And so, these are things that, we can have as a habit. But we also crucially need to have time where we're thinking, right? It's important that we take time where we have solitude between myself and my Lord, right? And, ideally, prayer is a perfect time for this. But unfortunately, the way that we do prayer sometimes doesn't really lead to that. And if that's the case, at the very least, take some private time. Take, 5 minutes where I'm just thinking of myself in front of my Lord and communicating, and, expressing everything, whether it's complaints, whether it's my faults, whether it's my doubts, whether it's my insecurities, whether it's my hopes, my dreams, whatever it is. I'm speaking to my Lord. I'm seeing myself in front of my Lord. I'm constantly looking at myself like that. So at the beginning it's difficult, The beginning, you try it, and after 30 seconds, your mind wanders, and you don't even remember what you were thinking about. You end up thinking about the next conversation that you're going to have with your friends, about your family issues, about this and that, and your studies and your work and all of this. But you try again, and you try again, and you try again. You have that as a crucial part of your daily routine. That's when you build the stamina to be able to say some of these du'as, right? Without building that up, of this intent in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of seeing yourself in front of Allah, then you can't automatically expect yourself to sort of be able to go through like an hour-long du'a with intention and paying attention towards Allah. It's difficult. It's something that's, it doesn't make sense that you'd be able to do that, right? And so you progress slowly but surely.
Jazakallah, that was very beneficial. The next question is, Salam, what if a person is making dua for something specific since a long time, but then it doesn't happen and it damages the tawakkul and trust in Allah a lot? It actually gets really difficult to understand such situations. What shall a person do then, and how can we deal with this hopelessness?
Sorry, I'm gonna just quote a verse of the Quran. Let me just pull it up. I don't want to misquote it. But before I get to the actual verse of the Quran, there's a dua iftitah that we have, that we are recommended to do um, every sort of day in Shahr Ramadan, when we are doing in the time of iftar. Within that dua, it says, um, فإن أبطى عني هو sorry, it says ولعل أبطى عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. Right? It says, perhaps the thing that you delayed from me, that I've been asking for you and you've delayed it from me, is because you know what's best for me. Right? And then it follows, فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد الله منك علي. I've never seen a more giving and generous Lord to a disobedient servant than you are to me. Right? And then it continues, فَتَحَبَّبَ إِلَيَّ فَتَبَغْضُ عَنْ. Like, you're the one who displays love towards me, and I did, I display hatred towards you. You called me, and I turned my back away from you, and none of that stopped you from displaying your fadl and your mercy upon me, your generosity. The thing that we have to do is constantly be aware of our blessings, constantly be aware of what we have, constantly be aware of how much we have. Right? Not to say that we're not going through difficulties. There's plenty of difficulties, but all of those difficulties pale in comparison to an everlasting life, right? If this life was all that there is, and there's nothing else, then yes, you can complain against Allah that why did you give me this difficulty, that. But when all this life is a minuscule, incomparable amount to the hereafter, and anything that I do here will be, like, what do I have to complain about? Like, what will I complain about? Like, there's nothing that is that it was, I don't know, that it was like I deserve something more. I deserve the ones who were bothered the most on this earth, the ones who had the most trouble on this earth, were the prophets and the imams, right? They suffered the most, and they're the beloved of Allah. They're the ones who are the closest to Allah, but they suffered the most, right? Right? We have directly from much as I have, right? Something that we see like again and again. Like, think of Imam Husayn, how much of difficulties he went through, right, on Ashura, right? I don't think anybody claims that they go through anything similar to that, right? But that's where we see that, that's again something that the Imam, despite all of that, is saying that, what makes this easy in front for me is that all this is happening in front of you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All this is happening in front of you. And so I have nothing to complain about. I have nothing that, sort of to say that I'm going to sort of complain and say that I deserve better. And this is where we learn from the Imams these things, that even though it seems like there's something wrong, but I, I I know that you have my back. There's something, the mercy that you have is beyond compare. More than the mercy and love that a mother has for her own child is the love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for us. And so definitely, if you're not giving it to me, then there's a wisdom for it. Does that mean that we stop doing dua? No, we continue. So going to the verse of the Quran, there's in the very beginning of Surah Maryam, where it's mentioning the story of Hazrat Zakaria. He says this in the um, So we'll just mention from the second verse. It says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا. So remember the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of your Lord towards his servant Zakaria. إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا. When he was whispering, he's calling out to his Lord, he's calling out to his Lord with a soft voice. قال ربي إني وحن العظم واشتغل رأس شيبة. Right? My position, he's saying to his Lord that, oh my Lord, I've reached a point where my bones have become brittle, they've become weak, and my head has been filled with gray hair, with whitened hair. وَلَمْ أَكُمْ بِدُعَائِكَ رَبِّي شَقِيًّا. And I've not become hopeless from dua. All this time, Hazrat Zakaria has been praying for a child. Right? He's been praying for a child. And all this time, he's saying that even to this point, I've come to this point, my bones are brittle, my head is, like been covered with white hair, but I'm still not hopeless. I'm still calling out. I'm still there. I'm still asking. Right? This is where we see, this is where we take lessons from the Quran, from the Prophet, why they did this. This is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, it's almost like Allah is saying to you, I have trust in you. I'm putting you in a situation that you can handle. And I know that you can handle it. So keep calling. Keep doing dua. You might not understand why it's been delayed, but have trust in me and keep calling on to me. Right? It's not about like why didn't I get what I wanted? If that's the framework that we think in, that it's everything about my wants and my desires, then we've missed things. It's about me in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a relationship between the slave and the master, where my asking is not an asking out of deserving and out of like I'm owed something. It's pleading. It's the beggar. I don't deserve anything. And so if Allah subhanahu gives, it's mercy. If He withholds, it's mercy. Because He knows what's best for me. But I'll still ask because we've been commanded to ask. The only reason we have the audacity to come in front of Allah subhanahu and ask for things is because He commanded us. He's the one who told us. And so when we do it with full confidence that it's heard and answered. How it's answered, we might not know, but we never get tired. Our tongues never get tired of asking Allah subhanahu. Because even that moment when we're asking Allah subhanahu from dua, that itself is a blessing. That itself is showing that I'm awake and I'm aware of my position in front of Allah subhanahu. And again, I'm sometimes when these kinds of questions are asked in a general setting, it's difficult to answer properly because I don't know what a person is going through in their lives. And sometimes these general answers when they're given, someone might say, well, this person, they don't know what I'm going through, and they don't know the difficulties that I'm going through, and the hardships I'm going through, and I don't. Obviously, I don't. But have this as a guarantee that no matter what it is, Allah subhanahu doesn't. Allah subhanahu has nothing to gain from you suffering, has nothing to gain from putting you in a bad situation. The only one that can possibly gain is you. You might not understand how, I might not understand why, but it's something that can happen. It's something that will happen if you take advantage of it. And so Allah is putting that in your hands, that you are now being given an opportunity. Right? Look at it in that lens, that every moment of misfortune that you feel as a hardship is an opportunity to again call towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, plead in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe if I was someone who everything was given to me, if I was rich and I had everything and my health was fine, no family problems, nothing, then maybe I would become, ghafil and heedless. Maybe na'udhu billah, I would become, negligent of my duties towards Allah. So I would say, like, why does it matter? Everything I have is, I have everything. I don't need Allah, right? Maybe that would have happened. Maybe Allah is saving me from that. Maybe He's, helping me in whichever way. And who knows? Again, there's just one possibility. There's millions, infinite possibilities of why something happened. But have this as a surety that Allah is looking out for us. And everything that we go through will be taken into consideration on the Day of Judgment.
Subhanallah, that was very, very beautiful. Jazakallah. I think we will just take one last question. There's a question which says, it's in the Quran that you ask for sure as if it's care. So does it ever happen that we might actually be asking for something that might be bad for us, and Allah still accepts it, knowing in His divine knowledge that it is in fact bad for us? Or if we say Allah Himself is khair and only does khair, so if something that we were praying is accepted and resulted in pain, is it that it was actually khair for us to go through that suffering, maybe as a test from Allah? How should we look at the situation? I know it's a bit confusing, but if that makes sense.
So I mean, it's in the Quran. It's in du'as. Asa an takrahu shay'an wa huwa khayrun lakum. Like maybe you don't like something, but that's something that's better for you. And the other way too, maybe something that you like, but it's actually something that's worse for you. Um, and so that's something that we know, and that's something that happens. That it might happen. That we ask, for example, for health, but maybe if I was to become healthy, then it would be worse for me. I ask for wealth, but maybe if I became wealthy, it would be worse for me. Who knows? And that's something that's constantly there, and that's why it's something that we always ask. Whatever we ask for, we ask with almost like a hidden condition, that I'm asking with this mindset that it's actually what's good for me. But I know that, oh Allah, you know what's best for me, right? And so again, we have the audacity to go in front of Allah and ask about specific things that we think as good, because He told us to. Again, He told us to act upon the apparent things. And again, the reason why is clear, right? In your day-to-day life, right? Are you working towards your health, towards financial security, towards good relations, to all these things that you see as good things? You obviously are, right? So why wouldn't, if your actions are working towards that, why wouldn't you ask for that in front of Allah, who's actually going to determine those things, right? And so us expressing it with our words is no less thing than our actions going towards those things as well. Like we're already working towards them. And so when we ask Allah for that, it's a natural thing that's happening, where we're admitting that even though I'm working towards these things, I'm going to the doctor to get medicine. I'm going to a job to get wealth and money to have security for myself and my family. I'm working on my relations, to do whatever, on and on and on, the various things that we do in our day-to-day lives. But we're doing all that with the mindset that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has everything in His hands. He's the one who determines it. And so obviously we'll pray for it. We'll be asking for it. And yes, because we know at the end of the day that I don't know, out of the infinite possibilities in the algorithm of life, of all the infinite factors that go into everything, that what actually is better for me. I'm saying to Allah that I'm asking for this, but you do to me whatever is best for me. You do for me whatever is best. If it's sickness, I'll take it. If it's poverty, I'll take it. If it's relations being cut off from the ones who are dear to me and who I love, then I'll take it. And I'll still, even though I'll take it, I'll still work towards it. I'll still work towards that wealth. I'll still work towards that health. I'll work towards building those relationships. But I'll understand and contextualize everything as what's best for me in that moment. Right? And so we're commanded by Allah to work based on the obvious apparent side of things. The apparent side of things is that wealth is better, health is better, good relations is better. All these things that we understand normally to be better, those are what are better. And so we'll work towards them, and we do dua to those things specifically. And they're in our dua specifically because of that. But there's a caveat. There's that thing in the back of our mind where we say that, okay, if it doesn't come from me, then that's what was khair for me in this moment. It might be a test, it might be something else, it might be better for me to suffer. But I'm letting Allah SWT determine that. I'm not determining it. What I'm determining is just that surface level, apparent level, which is what happens to me at a moment is what's best for me at that moment. And I'm commanded to work towards what's apparently better for me, whether that's wealth, health, and so on and so forth. And so sometimes it's difficult to understand in that context, but we have to work towards that, where it all of that makes sense again in the context of understanding that this world is not all that there is, that this world is just the opportunities to build a sort of sow the field of our hereafter, where we're going to harvest our efforts then. It's not as if we're going to see the ultimate results of everything now. We're going to see things in that time. And so we shouldn't be seeking immediate results in this world. We shouldn't be seeking heaven on earth. No, heaven is in heaven, earth is on earth. We should be seeking heaven on earth, meaning that we're constantly in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and cognizant of our duty towards Allah on this earth. That's what heaven on earth is. Not seeing actual ease and no tests and no suffering on this earth. That won't happen. It's not possible in this context. And so understanding that is important when we contextualize our du'as in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah. Just a quick follow